أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين. We were talking about Shaitan and how is it possible that we worship him, as it was mentioned in the verse in Surah Yaseen, Alam ahad ilaykum ya bani Adam alla fa'budu shaitan. If you remember last week, we mentioned that Shaitan is a general term, is an absolute for any vicious creature, be it insan or jinn or whatever. And of course, there is a big Shaitan, that is Iblis, who went ungrateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and was expelled from his orb and vicinity. And then he is a Shaitan working in this world. Now, how does Shaitan work in our heart? How does his word, how do his word spread among us? If you remember again, we said that Shaitan is a very busy person, the Iblis. He doesn't have much time to come to all of us and allocate a block of time for every one of us. So he should spread his words with some means. And that means could be called his army. Now, he had an army, certainly he had an army. The army is mentioned in Surah Isra, Surah number 17, verse number 64. Now, there is a conversation between Shaitan and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in this surah. And Shaitan says, prior to this verse, قَالَ أَرَأَيْتَكَ هَذَا الَّذِي كَرَّمْتَ عَلَيْهِ لَإِنْ أَخَّرْتَنِ إِلَى يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ لَأَحْتَنِكَنَّ ذُرِّيَّتَهُ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. What do you say about this creature of yours, which you have put him superior to, which you have given him superiority of me? If you just give me respite until the day of judgment, you will see that I would reign all his defenders. I would control all of them, but a few. Of course, a few which he knew that he has no power over them. What do you say about this? Well, this was a suggestion put to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by Shaitan, saying that you are wrong. You thought that this creature is superior to me. But if you give me respite until the day you want to resurrect them, you would see that how I would control them and how I am superior over them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, قَالَ الْهَبْ, you go, I will give you respite, and whoever followed you from among you would follow you to the hell as well. Now, then he said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَكَبْذِذْ مَنِ اسْتَفَعْتَ مِنْهُمْ بِصَوْتٍ. Any one of them that you can, with your voice, with your shriek, you take him out of the right path. وَأَجْلِبْ عَلَيْهِمْ بِخَيْلِكَ وَرَجِلِكَ. And attack them, launch attacks upon them with your foot soldiers and with your cavalry. وَشَارِكْهُمْ الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَوْلَادِ. And become a partner of them in their children and in their property. وَعِدْهُمْ. And give them promises. وَمَا يَعِدُهُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ إِلَّا هُوَ. And of course, Shaitan would not promise human, but in deception. Now, there are many concepts inherent in this verse. Many concepts which are put here that if we ponder upon them, we would find out how Shaitan works in our heart. And what is the instruments, what are the capabilities of Shaitan over us. First of all, it's only a shriek, it's only a voice. There's nothing else. وَاسْكَبْدِلْ مَنِ اسْتَطَعْتَ مِنْهُمْ بِصَوْتٍ. You want to go and deceive them, go only with your voice. You don't use your hands, you don't use any other means, you don't have any weapon, just with your voice. You just talk to them. So this is very important. Shaitan had no power over anyone but the power of deception. He just talks. He just has a voice in our heart. He just has a voice in our mind. And that voice, if it is heard, then of course he is victorious. If it is not heard, we have defeated him. Therefore, this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that إِنَّ كَيْدَ الشَّيْطَانِ كَانَ ضَعِيفًا. The deception of shaitan is very weak. He cannot do many things. He cannot work in your heart in a type of outstanding way. It's just a voice coming from him. If you listen to that voice, okay, shaitan is very happy. If he does not listen, he doesn't have any other power. He cannot use any other means. He cannot use his hands. He cannot use his weapon or whatever. But he is not allowed. He has foot soldiers and he has cavalry. Meaning that he doesn't usually come to us himself. He sends his soldiers to us. And that soldiers, foot soldiers, we see later on, foot soldiers of shaitan are us. We are his foot soldiers. We go to each other, we call each other to wrong causes. We are his foot soldiers. Of course, foot soldiers are much weaker than cavalry. Cavalry are the jinn, the shayateen which he has in from his own kind, that they come and attack us. And what they do, the only thing that they do is they just give promise. Now, this is very important because this is mentioned in many different places of the Quran, that shaitan works in our heart in this way. He just gives us promises and he brings for us different type of aspiration. Now, in Surah Nisa, verse 120, the type of work that shaitan do in our heart, type of work that he's doing in our soul, is mentioned as يَعِدُهُمْ وَيُمَنِّي وَمَا يَعِدُهُمُ الشَّيْطَانِ إِلَّا غُرُورًا. He gives you promises and he brings for you aspiration. Umniya is an aspiration, is desire. He brings for you desires which do not deserve you, of course, which is just deceptive desire. And promises which are deceptive promises. Now, what this means? Of course, you cannot see shaitan in your heart. You cannot see shaitan in work in your soul. But if you imagine, if you ponder a bit more carefully, we cannot see shaitan because, of course, he is of other kinds. And that other kind is as such that they see us, we don't see them. إِنَّهُ يَرَاهُ in Surah Araf, إِنَّهُ يَرَاهُ هُوَ وَقَبِيلُهُ. He and his type, that jinn, he and his type, they see you from a position that you do not see them. مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا تَرَوْنَهُ. They see you do not. And what they do, the only thing they do, they come from mind, they create contemplation. They have this power. This is the only power. And even if they were not there, we had this power of contemplation, tahayyul. We had the power of contemplation ourselves. What they do, they bring false contemplation into our mind, false imaginations. For example, and this is the promise and the desire. For example, you contemplate that if I was pink, what would that happen? Then this is just a contemplation which comes to your mind. Okay? Then this contemplation becomes a type of desire. Oh, if I was a chief, what a good thing it was. What could I do? And then the promises come. Well, if you were a king, what would that happen? You could have anything that you wanted. You could have any wife that you wanted to choose. You could have any car that you wanted to buy, and all these things. And then they make themselves as an origin for our decision. Yes, I have to become a king. I have to kill this. I have to kill that. And these are type of things which are created all the time in our minds. They cannot command us, the shayateen, to do something. They only create desires. They only create promises. They only create contemplation in our mind, in our heart. And that is how we are drawn by them. We are pushed by them all. And if, of course, we do not give in to these contemplation, if we use the power of our reason, if we just think for a second that, well, what do I want to do with kingdom? I mean, this world is going to end very soon. I'm going to die very soon. If this type of thing comes in, you will see that all the work of the shaitan would become unraveled, would become defeated. The only thing is that the reason, the intellect, would become ineffective if we do not begin in to these contemplations that shaitan create now and now. And there are many things which are very easily detectable that they are from shaitan, like desire of becoming powerful over others. This is a deception from shaitan. Why do you want to be powerful over others? Why do you want to have authority over others, for example? These type of deceptions which are usually found in the mind of many people, are the type of things that are part and parcels of shaitan's deception. Now, of course, you see that these contemplations, these promises, these desires are spread by ourselves as well. When we admonish our children, we admonish them to the values which are very much like the values that shaitan wants to spread among us. When we advise a friend about what they should do in this world, with their business, with their friends or whatever, it's very much like the advice that shaitan gives. It's all worldly based. It's all based on the idea that this world is the most important thing. You have to work for it. You have to go for it and put all your effort in it. So in this way, aren't we really spreading his word? If he wants to come to, for example, to a friend of mine and tell him that, well, don't forget, of course, Akhirah is there, of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created it. But now the most important thing is that you have to attend to your work, to your land. This is very important. You have to get the means of your subsistence. And for your children, this is the most important thing that you have to think about now. Well, why shaitan should go to him anymore? I mean, we are spreading his word. We are his foot soldiers. And these foot soldiers are working for him. And his, of course, cavalry are working for him. He doesn't need himself to go and spread his word everywhere. He had means that spread his word. And, of course, this is the realization, the materialization of what Allah said in the Quran. وَأَجْلِلْ عَلَيْهِمْ بِخَيْلِكَ. Attack them with your foot soldiers and with your cavalry. And you would see that some people, of course, they are not affected. They have godly values that are never affected by these idle talk that you try to spread around. And this is why you will see many people are really more inclined towards the hereafter, towards Akhirah. They remember their death. If you remember, we said one of the most effective means of shaitan is if he can just make you forget your death. If you forget it, you are just a defenseless type of meat in his hand that he can do whatever he wants with you. Because you have forgotten your death, then all the promises come, all the desires, contemplations, aspirations would come into your mind, and this is what he created in our mind. Now, what are his promises? Again, of course, from what we can understand from the Quran. In Surah Baqarah, said, الشيطان يعدكم الفقر ويأمركم بالفحشاء والله يعدكم مغفرة منه وَحَدْلَ وَاللَّهُ وَاسِعٌ عَلِيمٌ. Shaitan promises you poverty and therefore orders you to indecent acts to cover for that poverty, of course. And Allah promises you a maghfirah from Himself and unlimited, of course, the opposite of poverty. If you come to Him, He would cover up for whatever you have done in the past, and then He will heal you from your fault. Now, from this verse, we understand that it is not only Shaitan which is working in our contemplation, in our mind, in our soul. There is, from the other side, the angels of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who are working in our contemplation. And depending to which side we did in, we become from that party, from either the party of Shaitan or the party of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's not only Shaitan that has this power of working, whispering in our heart, in our mind, there is the opposite side coming as well. Now, how Shaitan promises you fast? Okay, anything you want to do. If you want, for example, to dedicate specific time of yours to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to worship, He would come to you. Oh, you are sitting idle here just talking with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What about your children? Don't they have any right? Shouldn't you go and get subsistence for them as well? Well, you have to do it. You have to work hard in this world and all the other things which follow. And in this way, He all the time tells us, if you don't do this, if you don't do that, you would go poor. What about yourself? What about your children? What about your future? And all these things come. If you want to give a sadaqah, for example, well, aren't your children more deserving for this sadaqah than the people that we are going to give them? They have priority over the others. If you give it to them, then what about the future of your children? What about the future of your family? And all these things would come to someone's mind. And you can imagine about the king, for example. You see, Muawiyah really annihilated himself, just and his religion and his faith and whatever, if he had any faith, just to make Yazid his successor and give the rule to Banu Umayyah. Okay, of what use? What use had that for himself? He passed away with the burden of all the sins and wrongdoing that Banu Umayyah did after him. So, but why did he do that? Why did he think that he should pass over this power to his children? It's just Shaitan coming in and saying, oh, you have all this power, this bounty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why you want to give it only for yourself? Why shouldn't your children have some part of it? If you don't do that, what your children are going to do in future, what your descendants are going to do in future. So why don't you want to give them part from this? And all these things that come to our mind, the contemplation that Shaitan worked in our mind very, very strongly, of course, for those who give in, and very weakly for those who do not give in. And of course, as the Quran said, وَمَا كَانَ لِيَ عَلَيْكُمْ مِنْ سُلْطَانٍ. This is the confession of Shaitan himself on the day of judgment. وَقَالَ الشَّيْطَانِ. This is in Surah Ibrahim, verse 22. وَقَالَ الشَّيْطَانِ لَمَّا قُضِيَ الْأَمْرِ. When everything is finished, of course, everyone had died, they go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Shaitan is there, human beings are there. And human beings complain to Shaitan that didn't you tell us to do this? Didn't you scare us from the future or whatever? وَقَالَ الشَّيْطَانِ لَمَّا قُضِيَ الْأَمْرِ. When everything is finished, Shaitan would say, إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَعَدَكُمْ وَعْدَ اللَّهِ. Allah promised you and His promises were truth, were haqq. وَوَعَدْتُكُمْ. I promised you فَأَخْلَفْتُكُمْ. And now I have reneged. I'm not going to fulfill any of my promises. What do you want to do? Well, Allah is going to punish me. What can He do with me? Because you can't give me any punishment more than that Allah is going to give me. What do you want to do? And, of course, وَمَا كَانَ لِيَ عَلَيْكُمْ مِنْ سُلْطَانٍ. I didn't have any power or control over you. إِلَّا أَنْ دَعَوْتُكُمْ. I just called you. فَاسْتَجَبْتُمْ. You can. What should I do? Why did you come, for example? You could not come very easily. I didn't use my hand. I didn't pull your neck, and I didn't get hold of your neck and pull you towards me and push you somewhere. You just did it by a voice. I just said, and you follow. You found it interesting. You said, this is good. You have to follow it. Okay. This is not my fault. This is your fault. You chose. And the decoration, another thing. We have desires ourselves. We have aspirations ourselves. But we want to do things to reach to those aspirations. They can't come and decorate those aspirations for us in a very beautiful way that we think that this is the only thing that we have. وَزَيَّنَ لَهُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ أَعْمَالَهُم. Shaitan decorates for them whatever they do. Give it some embellishment for them. Gives it some embellishment for God. And you would think that this is the only aim of humankind. This is the only thing that I have to reach. Now, if you look to the values which are going around us, and you just judge them, and look at with the values that Quran is teaching us, you would see how Shaitan had affected the whole human race in their life. But one of the values is, of course, that every individual has the right to realize whatever they want. This is the individualistic type of values that the modern society is teaching us. That what the utmost value, the most important value in this world is that every individual should be able to realize their desire. Whatever the desire itself is holy and sacred. And as long as it is not upholding any other people's desire, the society should work toward the realization of that desire, whatever it is, whether it is related to social aspirations, economical aspirations, and of course pleasures related to human desires like sex, like music, like whatever that we can think. Any aspiration that any person had should be realized in a modern society, and a modern society work as a whole toward the realization of these aspirations and desires. Now, isn't the modern society really working on more Shaitan? Well, you might say that why shouldn't everyone arrive at their aspirations and desires? Well, because lots of aspirations and desires which come to our mind is from Shaitan, isn't it? I mean, the thing which we are now talking about, human rights, in many aspects, in many fields of it, are some type of aspirations for human individuals that they want to realize, and they don't find the means, if, for example, society prevents them from. And now people are fighting that, yes, every individual has the right to realize whatever they want, as long as they are not, of course, interfering with other people's desires and aspirations. This is a part of Declaration of Human Rights, isn't it? Well, it is inherent in Declaration of Human Rights. Well, of course, Declaration of Human Rights in many aspects had lots of good things in it. It curbs the arbitrary powers to interfere with human beings' affairs, their personal affairs. But in many aspects and respects as well, it is putting fuel into this call of Shaitan towards realization of human found desires. Now, if we work in this way, aren't we, well, I don't know whether we are his foot soldier or cavalry, because sometimes human beings might become the cavalry of Shaitan rather than being foot soldiers. And inadvertently, many religious people are following this call to help the individual desires to become realized, to become materialized, while we know many different species, so to speak, of these desires are the type that Shaitan is trying to inculcate into our mind and into our society. Okay. One more interesting aspect of the work of shaitan, and that is the allocation of one shaitan to a person, to every person, which Quran talks about very much. That if shaitan finds that you are working for him very well, you are somehow a very valuable food soldier for him as a human being, you are spreading his word very nicely, then he would appoint a guard for you. Or the Quran tells Allah would appoint a guard for you from shaitan, of course, meaning that he would let them to come to you. He would somehow take the barrier between you and the shaitan, and they can come and join you and accompany you in whatever you do in all moments of your life. In Surah verse number 25, it is mentioned that the verse said, وَقَدْ لَهُمْ قُرَنَاءَ أَدَيَّنُوا لَكُمْ مَا بَيْنَ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَمَا خَلْفَهُمْ وَحَقَّ عَلَيْهِمُ الْقَوْلُ فِي أُمَمٍ قَدْ خَلَتْ مِنْ قَبْلِهِمْ مِنَ الْجِنِّ وَالْإِنسِ إِنَّهُمْ كَانُوا خَاسِرِينَ. We have appointed some companies for them, for the disbelievers, for the hypocrites. We have made some companies to go and join them. We have appointed some company. What they do, they just decorate for them whatever comes to them or whatever had passed for them. The past and the future they decorate. In the past, what has happened, they try to analyze it in a very decorated way. In the future, what's going to come, they will decorate it in a nice way. كَزَيَّنُوا لَكُمْ مَا بَيْنَ أَيْدِيهِمْ وَمَا خَلْفَهُمْ وَحَقَّ عَلَيْهِمُ الْقَوْلُ. And the word will be realized about them, as we mentioned in the beginning of Surah Yaseen. And then they will enter in whatever other creatures of jinn and ins had entered, and they will go to hell. Now, these Qur'an, these companies, are explained in a better way, in a more clear way in Surah Zuhr, verse number 36. The verse says, وَمَنْ يَعْشُ عَنْ ذِكْرِ الرَّحْمَنِ نُقَيِّضْ لَهُ شَيْطَانًا فَهُوَ لَهُ قَرِينٌ وَإِنَّهُمْ لَيَصُدُّونَهُمْ عَنِ السَّبِيلِ وَيَحْسَبُونَ أَنَّهُمْ مُهْتَدُونَ. Whoever goes blind from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we would appoint a shaitan person. نُقَيِّضْ لَهُ شَيْطَانًا وَهُوَ لَهُ قَرِينٌ. He would become a company for them. وَإِنَّهُمْ لَيَصُدُّونَهُمْ عَنِ السَّبِيلِ. And whatever they want to do, they turn them from the right path. Now, as I said, they have no power to do that. They cannot use their hand to turn us anywhere. But what they do, whatever we think, whatever we contemplate, whatever desire we have, it comes from their soul. And then they decorate it in a way that we think that this is the only path to be followed. وَإِنَّهُمْ لَيَصُدُّونَهُمْ عَنِ السَّبِيلِ وَيَحْسَبُونَ أَنَّهُمْ مُهْتَدُونَ. They think that they are, of course, guided ones. They think that they are enlightened, intellectual. Other people are lay people, are illiterate people. They are backward people. They cannot understand anything. It is us who understand things. It is us who are now modernized, who live in our time, in our place. Other people are living in the past. This is how they come and make things for them to be very colorful, very breathtaking, so to speak. But they don't know that whatever comes in would come from this company of them, which is following them step by step. Wherever they go, he is with them. Actually, he sticks to them like a virus, like something which sticks to our nerves, for example. They stick to our heart, they stick to our soul, and we cannot let. anymore. It would become very difficult to drive them away. We are somehow captured by a shaitan. We are somehow a captive of a shaitan, of a jinn, shaitan from jinn, of course, which tells us what to do all the time, which whispers in our heart and in our mind what to do all the time. And this is, of course, a punishment. Ibrahim, if you remember, he says to his father the first time, he said, Ya abati, inni ahaqu an yamassaka adhabun min ar-Rahman. I fear that punishment from Rahman comes to you if you are worshipping idols. But takuna lish-shaytani waliya, and you will become a friend of shaitan. He will come and stick to you, he accompanies you, never ever you go anywhere but he will be with you. They will be with you, they would follow you. And if they come and overwhelm us, if they come and get hold of us, we are told in Surah Mujadala, istahwada alayhim mushtaq. Sultan overwhelmed them, captured them, فَأَنْسَاهُمْ ذِكْرَ اللَّهِ, and the dhikr of Allah totally goes out of there. And they become a party, a member of the party of shaitan. أُولَٰئِكَ حِزْبُ الشَّيْطَانِ أَلَا إِنَّ حِزْبَ الشَّيْطَانِ هُمُ الْخَاسِرُونَ. Of course, they are the losers. They are the ones who are going to be the losers on the day of judgment. It was some comfort. Comfort had many meanings. One of them is to be ungrateful to the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of them is to deny Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of them is to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, in Surah Maryam, you are told, Alam tara anna arsalna shayateen ala al-kafirin. You not even send shayateen to kafirin. Ta'ulluhum adba. They drive, they sped. Somehow, as or hams, they are the same thing. When, for example, you ride the horse and you spread it with some sort of spook or something, and they are driven forward very more quickly. Shaitan does this to kafirin as well. He comes and instigates, somehow puts fuel in whatever we think, in whatever we contemplate. And we are told the properties to I seek refuge with you from the spirit of shaitan, the instigation of shaitan. So the only thing shaitan does, contemplation, desire, instigation. Instigation is a very important thing. And wherever we want to start something or want to resort to Quran, we say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, is from his instigation, from his curse. Of course, he cannot do anything else. That's the only thing he do. Even that shaitan which accompanies a kafir, a person, the only thing he does is just all the time whispering. And that means we're not all the time, if we are mu'mins, we are not all the time at the mercy of shaitan or in his hand under his control. He just comes to us sometimes. And if he finds us a good prey, then he would appoint one of his cavalries to us, a shaitan that will become our qareen, and we will be with that qareen until we enter the hell, and we will be in one place in the hell. And of course, this qareen, this shaitan and that human being would quarrel with each other before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment. Qala qarinuhu, when they come to me, the qareen from jinn, because both of them are going to be punished. There's no difference between jinn and ins. Now, qala qarinuhu rabbana ma adkhayt. He said, well, Allah would ask him, why did you do this to this human being? Why did you make all these instigations, contemplations, desires, and all these things you put in his mind? قال قرينه, he said, ربنا ما أطغى. I didn't do that. ولكنه كان في ظلام بعيد. He himself was going astray. He himself was with God. I didn't do anything. قال قرينه ربنا ما أطغى ولكن كان في ضلال بعيد. And apparently the human tried to answer and to refute what he said, قَالَ لَا تَحْقَسِمُوا لَدَيَّ. You are not going to quarrel in front of me, before me, child. وَقَدْ قَدَّمْتُ إِلَيْكُمْ بِالْوَحِيِّ. I sent forth to both of you my promises and whatever you had to know regarding this day. مَا يُبَدَّلُ الْقَوْلُ لَدَيَّ. Now I'm not going to tell you whatever I said. You will be dealt as I said, as I told, as I sent you my message. مَا يُبَدَّلُ الْقَوْلُ لَدَيَّ وَمَا أَنَا بِظَلَّامٍ لِلْعَبِيدِ. So they will go together before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they would go to hell together. And they are the people, both that jinn hate that human being, because he was the one who drove him to do all those deceiving and all those mischief. Well, of course he liked to do that. And the human being hate that shaitan because he was the one who brought him eventually here. And unfortunately they are going to live there with each other forever in one cell. And this is one of the most severe punishments for these two people who very much hate each other, and they have to live with each other. Now there's one other thing I want to mention, and that is shaitan can never inspire a good cause. Whatever he inspires is a bad cause. And if someone comes to you with a good cause, you should know that this is not from shaitan, this is from Allah. In Surah Shu'ara, of course, people were saying that it's a jinn who bring this Quran to the Prophet, peace be on him. This is what the kuffar of Mecca would say, because they couldn't say anything else. They couldn't refute what Prophet said. They couldn't bring something like it in terms of the eloquence and elegance of the literature. So what they said this is what jinn would bring to the Prophet, the shayateen. Now, the Surah Shu'ara, end of Surah Shu'ara, verse 210, it says, وَمَا تَنَزَّلَتْ بِهِ Shayateen have not brought this down to the heart of the Prophet. وَمَا يَمْلَقِي لَهُ. And they do not deserve it. وَمَا يَسْتَطِيعُونَ. And they cannot do such. They cannot bring such nice, such cannibal, such decent words to be spread among the people. Whatever comes from shaitan is indecency. As-shaitan ya'idukum al-fa' wa ya'murukum bil-fahsha. Okay, it's indecency which comes from. It's foul value which comes from. It is adverse and mischievous type of thought and idea which comes from the shaitan. Nothing else can come from the shaitan. So whatever which is decent, which is nice, which draws us nearer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is certainly not from the shaitan, is from a malak, from an angel, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala coming to our heart. And this is much more powerful than what the shaitan does in our heart and in our contemplation, in our mind. And in this way, if we follow shaitan, certainly we have no excuse on the day of judgment that you had made him powerful over me, because of course the power was just a sound, a shriek, and there are other sounds, other voices coming from angels to us, and if we follow them, inshallah shaitan will be defeated. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin.
Okay, can you hear question and answer? The promotion on the ladies' side and 3 on the gents. Can we start the Zoom?
He did move the way of determining what is inherently my personal trait, hope, or desire is very different from her. It's empty, if you like, negative or unnecessary or something. Like as several consensus or create, can necessarily the whole satanic influence or cause we just treat.
Yet it originates from us. And as soon as Shaitan realizes that there is something that he can use and he can somehow nurture and cause to grow and affect other people, they would come. I usually say they are like sharks. They smell blood. They smell foul ideas, foul contemplation. As soon as they smell there is some foul contemplation desire somewhere, they would go to make use of it. It's just like, for example, if you drop a 10 pounds note in the street, you will see how people would rush to us, isn't it? I mean, there's no one attending it. And as soon as you originate a foul idea, and as soon as the shaitan can realize that this is something they can use, they come, of course, very quickly. And they would put fuel into that foul desire and idea. It is from us, yes, that's right. And that's why if shaitan was not there, we could have gone astray as well. And of course, not that many of people could have gone astray, but still we could have been at the juncture of going towards right and wrong. Now, the story of Adam and Eve also tells us that the origin of false desires come from ourselves. If you remember, Shaitan told to Adam that there is a tree of eternity in this garden, that if you eat from it, you can become like angels. Now, that desire he found in Adam and Eve, that they want to be like, they want to live forever there. And if they didn't want to live forever there, of course, they would have said, no, we don't want to eat from that tree. Show us a tree that we eat and we die sooner, for example. We go to our Lord. That's better for us. So the origin is Pamak, but the danger is that the ideas and desires that come to our mind are not as dangerous. But as soon as the shaitan finds it and dwells on it and tries to make use of it, then they will become dangerous. They will decorate them in a way that we certainly are drawn to it.
That's right. So, how do I know that I have seen that stage? On a day-to-day basis, how do I know that Shaitan is definitely coming into my pathway and now is influencing me? Are there any methods or suggestions laid down by a prophet or the Imam or whatever in terms of how can one, if you like, on the regular basis reflect? Could it be peer-to-peer reflective exercise? Should I be sitting at Ahmad every month and say, shall I just spend half a day today and let's just see if there is shaitan influencing you? You tell me and I'll tell you. Or Ahmad, shaitan may be the same as my shaitan. So how do I choose my peer? If I go randomly to 5 people, what is the guarantee? Should these 5 people go through a professional course of development and go at the meeting of shaitanic thoughts, if like? How do I do it? How do you know?
There is a verse at the end of Surah Araf saying that إِنَّ الَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا إِذَا مَسَّهُمْ طَائِفٌ مِّنَ الشَّيْطَانِ تَذَكَّرُوا. The muttaqeen, as soon as they are hit by a visit from shaitan. Ta'at means going round, for example, tawaf in Kaaba. So if they find that shaitan is just going round them, as soon as this happens, they would realize it. فَإِذَا هُمْ مُبْصِرُونَ. And they are very sharp seeing people. They can see very clearly that this is from shaitan. And وَإِخْوَانُهُمْ. And those who are already brothers of shaitan, already friends of shaitan, يَمُدُّونَهُمْ فِي الْخَيْرِ. They come, they do whatever they want. ثُمَّ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ. Of course, they have no mercy upon a person in terms of dragging them into false desires and false promises. وَهُمْ لَا يُبْصِرُونَ. They don't have any shortcoming, they do not fall short of any type of means to take them towards that. Now, what the verse tells us, of course, again, it certainly does not answer the question, because it brings another question. What the verse tells us is that if you try for taqwa is a barrier which it is a barrier in the sense that it will prevent shaitan to come near you. They might come and go around you, but they cannot enter the heart, penetrate the heart. And secondly, taqwa gives you a means that you can realize whether this is from shaitan or this is from Allah. And this is mentioned, of course, in other verses of the Quran. Ya ayyuhalladhina aman. So the believers of a true kind. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu in tattaqullah. If you fear God, yaj'al lakum furqana. He would give you a means, a furqan, by which you could differentiate, discern between evil and between right, between what comes from the shaitan and what comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I don't think it is possible to go to different people and find out, because those people themselves might be from the food sources of shaitan. So we cannot really trust other people as well. What we can trust is, first of all, to purify and somehow make ourselves sincere towards the code of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then try to understand His value, what He wants to tell us, how we should be in His eye. And if we practice in this way, hopefully, inshallah, after a while, that Qur'an will be given to us that we can realize very quickly. If a person talks, we can realize, is this talk a shaitani talk or a Rahmani talk? Is this going to take us towards routes which shaitan wants or towards the routes which Rahman wants? So I don't think there is any practical thing that we can really find out at the beginning, except trying to increase the taqwa.
Can I go to the shish before I come to Surah? Just that 2 nights, one will come to Beiki, either the worship. And he's trying to console. Kasaba? Yeah.
Or, sorry, here you go. Just to refer the point up to his side. Some of the examples you give, for example, the person who worked for shaitan tells you work more, work for, and then you should prefer your children and neglect your prayers, etc. These are extreme examples. So one, you can go either very extreme in one way or very extreme in the other way. Where you fail all the time and neglect your children, for example. Most of it, I find the balance in the middle, and that's what it should be. Now, at that point, when a suggestion comes in your mind, how can you discern, or put it through a litmus test to take, this is a right one or a wrong suggestion? Or if you're near it, good, is that enough?
Well, you are asking a very difficult question. Shaitan have not told me. Yeah, I think what I can say again is that if we try to understand what are the values that God tries to teach us, we can differentiate between the two, and we can find the balance. This is very important, find the balance. Sometimes shaitan comes from the other way. While Allah would attend to the children, you go to a cave and worship yourself, and why do you want to attend them? Leave it to Allah, have tawakkul, and all these things. You see, he's very, very clever. He knows from what direction, from what side he has to attack you, and attacks you from that side. So I think what shaitan wrote on very much is ignorance of a person from what Allah tries to teach us by His messengers, by the good people, or whatever. So to increase our knowledge of religion is somehow a protection against shaitan. Of course, if that is done sincerely, in a sincere way, because you might become very great ulama, still a soldier in hand of shaitan. So if we are sincere, and if we have the knowledge of what Prophet really taught, what Prophet really preached, I don't think shaitan can ever deceive any one of us. So the two things, sincerity and, of course, knowledge. These two, if they are together, then shaitan cannot defeat.
Okay. Where? Yeah, cause.
You mentioned following parking. I don't know why it's correctly. Even in the verse that you quoted, God will appoint guardian who they looked upon half of Shagar, who indicate the desire for when we play with God will appoint, and then how can we pay the other no party? The key corners of my another part of there.
Now, how the Exodus actually explain these type of verses, because we have lots of other verses. Like for example, يُذَلُّ بِهِ كَثِيرًا وَيَأْتِي بِهِ كَثِيرًا. Allah guide many and misguide many. They say either this comes as a punishment, and Allah does it as a punishment to them. In fact, a jinn can be appointed by God as a punishment for someone. Or, of course, the better way of explaining it is that Allah would leave them to be at the peril of becoming in that situation, becoming, for example, susceptible to a shaitan going to them. And I think if we think about it more carefully, this is a right way of explaining it, because, for example, we have protection by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of shaitan coming to us. Now, if we take that protection, if we think that we do not deserve that protection, then that shaitan would automatically go and takes hold of the person. And in this way, we can say Allah has appointed that shaitan. Half metaphorical, half real, actually. But according to the Shia faith, certainly Allah would not work for the shaitan, and Allah would not let shayateen to use his power for themselves. Of course, everything is using Allah's power, but what they have, the decisions that they make is their own decisions. The power they use is the power of Allah. As for everything else, as for us, for example, we make a decision, what we use is the power of Allah to realize those decisions. The shayateen, the same. They make a decision, it's the power of Allah that they use. So it's half metaphorical, half real, I think.
Truly, there's a lot of difference between fortaking and for his bad actions and actually appointing. The terminology used is actually he had appointed that surely that could against the second actually this actually make it more appropriate.
Well, if we are Ash'arite, it's very easy to explain. They say, yes, Allah would appoint them, and that is a punishment for them. And we have in Shia viewpoint some advocates who say this, that it's a punishment. So whichever way you take it, of course, the verse is very clear. It says Allah appoints these shayateen to them, those who completely go blind of Allah's remembrance. Now, I may ask one other question, and that is, who gives the people, not you, God forbid, that's not, who gives the people the punishment in the hell? Is it Allah who gives them the punishment, or is it them who have brought that punishment upon themselves? Well, certainly you would say that it's Allah who punishes them. In the Quran, we have that Allah punishes them. But why Allah should punish? Certainly because they are vile, they deserve it. If they are not punished, they would do other things which are more vile. Now, if that punishment which comes in the hell comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, couldn't we say that even these happening to this world, as a result of what we have done, could be a punishment from Allah coming by Him? Yet He appoints a shaitan to us that would misguide us as a result of what we have done already. So, you see, it's very difficult to explain. whether he appoints or he says the person to be at their control. But this is how the Quran speaks. It's more like Ash'arite type of thinking than a Shia type.
I won't find it online because the actual word is Alambara Annaha Saluna Shayazin. So, not even a one. It's just like Arsalna Buso, it's like Arsalna Shayati. So, I mean, it's a bit more than the people appointed, the Sheikh Henry.
Yeah. Well, as soon as he has created these shayateen, actually, he has sent them to us because eventually they come to us. So his creation of these shayateen are actually his act of sending them to us. There is a nice story about this. One of the greatest companions of Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, Muhammad ibn Ali ibn Nu'man, was a very close friend of Abu Hanifa, and they always made jokes with each other. And there are a lot of instances of these. Even there is a book written about the discussions and arguments between Abu Hanifa and Muhammad ibn Ali ibn Nu'man. And whenever they met each other, they pulled each other's legs, so to speak. And once Abu Hanifa was teaching in the mosque, and Muhammad ibn Ali ibn Nu'man entered the mosque, and Abu Hanifa said, "Yes, Shaitan has entered, now let's listen from the Shaitan." And Muhammad ibn Ali ibn Nu'man said, "Well, yes, I have come by order of Allah, because Allah said, Alam tara anna arsalna shayatina ila al-kafirin ta'udduhum Allah." So he had sent me to you too. So, well, whether he sends shayateen or whatever, well, this is how Quran talks. Yeah.
Which? Lose. Sheikh, when it comes to the male between dating on Westcott, that is not friendly. Usually the real color, so that color. How do we stand to that from, leaving around refuse to eat, but, when you call B, and then you go to check.
Okay. Because that was Imam Ali. He was very much cared for by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are not like he.
Okay, so he's saying I did for the Sharia.
Of course, all these rules set by Sharia is the guidance of Sharia for us. That you keep whatever you have, you give the homes and zakah. And you can keep, and of course, haqqun ma'loom, which is mentioned in the Quran, charity that you have to give, you receive reward. It's certainly human intellect inspired by Allah's guidance that could decide how much they have to keep for themselves, how much they have to give at charity sadaqah. What is important is holding money is not good. If you have money, you put it in business, you put it in production and all these things, and of course whatever you gain, some part of it you keep for yourself, some part of it you give to fuqara, to the needy, and that part that you keep for yourself, certainly you do not hold it again, you put it in production, it is all good. But as long as you try to hold for the future, this is something which is not advisable at all.
And is there Christian Muhammad in regard to the ladies?
Just get busy. When we are said that the key, so the environment for people who take a stray, rather than inherently that you want to go astray. But earlier you said that we are talking out that you want to go astray, and therefore even without your family would want to stray. And then even a lot that he thought into us, the sense that we were below, because he thought in us when we are created. So therefore, I think differently really going far part of it to us. There was something wrong within that or not. Now, of course, the soul is not part of him. He is a creation of him. That soul, the ruh, of which we have very little knowledge. But in other verses, he says, فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَى. Both fujur and taqwa is inspired into our heart. So we know how to go wild, how to go vicious, and we know how to go righteous and how to go good. So both these things are, the knowledge of these two are given to us. And we have given free will to choose. And this is the whole idea of this world, of course. The idea of this world coming before the other world. Therefore, even if shaitan is not there, if we have vicious ideas, we can realize them because we have that knowledge of viciousness. As Allah says, فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا. And this is somehow a perfection. Perfection is not that we only know good. Perfection is that we know both good and bad. We choose the good rather with our own free will, rather than just being forced by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala towards goodness.
You are able to know that in value. There's no shaitan, we know that. But to be able to know that bad, you have inherently yourself know that this is bad, because maybe there is something which say that it's bad, so therefore there's already a bad thing to kill his heart, rather than this good. Second of the thing is up. I mean, it is not ourselves, our inner self that makes us perfect. You can want to be very property, like the other around you that makes that. Having a knowledge, I choose some who's a very different from you inherently. You have that in you. What was that? But you mean that we have the knowledge of good and bad, but without shaitan we cannot go toward the bad. How do you know that? What if we have the knowledge of bad? I mean, before shaitan actually going astray, who misled him? This is a question put about jinn as well. Who would mislead jinn? It's themselves. It comes from, because they are given the knowledge of good and bad as well. So they themselves go astray. And shaitan, before he gone astray, there was no one to whispering to him. He himself went. And we are the same creatures as that. So it is possible for us. And there is a verse in the Quran which is very interesting. With the shaitans, which the Atheists say it's about a person called Bal'anabahu. Of course, there are different opinions about it. And the verse is, وَاتْلُ عَلَيْهِمْ نَبَأَ الَّذِي آتَيْنَاهُ آيَاتٍ فَانْسَلَخَ مِنْهَا. Give them the report of the account of a person to whom we gave our son. He was very knowledgeable. But he came out of them. After he came out of them, actually pursued them for his own desires. فَأَتْبَعَهُ الشَّيْطَانُ. Shaitan found out. After he went astray, Shaitan found out and went to actually make use of him. Just smell the foul smell of those wrongdoings. فَأَتْبَعَهُ الشَّيْطَانُ فَكَانَ مِنَ الْغَاوِينَ وَلَوْ شِئْنَا لَرَفَعْنَاهُ بِهَا وَلَكِنَّهُ أَخْلَدَ إِلَى الْأَرْضِ. The same type of thinking came to his mind, that I can live with this power and ayat Allah has given me forever on this earth. So as soon as he thought like, and he came out of those ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, shaitan went to him and then started to make use of it. So sometimes shaitan finds out even a bit later after we have gone astray, and as soon as he finds out, he comes and he made use of that.
So if we go back to the situation with the shaitan, it disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the characteristics or the attribute or whatever you could call them that he had or did obey, we find that in us, and we don't realize it, that we have it. For example, Arabic, you think they're better than other people. They're better at the craft and the community than other people or whatever. I mean, we can go at humanitarian right, that we have the right because we feel that we're not harming anyone else, but any kind of pride. And yet, do you see that we can convince ourselves so well when he had the correct analysis of what happened between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and shaitan disobedience, that causes us to exact that particular victim.
Arrogance. Yeah, of course.
Greed and a lot of things that were attributed in that time to Shaitan. Their qualities to what.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you see why some people follow Shaitan and some do not follow. If it was only Shaitan who misguided people, he either should have misguided everyone or should not have the power to misguide anyone. They don't have that he can misguide some and cannot do so, or he does this in different magnitude, show that it is us ourselves who decide before Shaitan can do anything. And of course, the most powerful drive for that is pride and arrogance. As it drew Shaitan away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it would drive us away from him. And as soon as you are expelled from the nearness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Shaitan would come and take hold of us. So yes, that's true.
Because you find everybody feels they're right when they have an opinion.
Yeah.
Everybody feels their opinion, right? Shaitan is part of the call Shaitan leaving the butch culture.
Yeah, that's very interesting because this idea of that everyone is entitled to their opinions, which of course we have it in the modern world, is something we have really to think, which we really have to think about. And I think for a person, the most urgent and important thing is to find out what are the real Islamic values given and try to mold ourselves according to those values. And it's very hard, of course, because you are brought up with some values which are given to you by your society. And then it's very, very difficult, even for Muslims. I mean, even in Islamic countries, we are brought up with values which most of them are not right values, of course. And we think that they are very right, they're very just. And as long as we have not found out those values and then discern between right opinion and wrong opinion, we ourselves have lots of opinions that we think that they are completely correct, and that might be a work of Shaitan. So this very whole notion of the modern society, which is based on this idea of everyone is entitled to their opinion and the democracy is based on that. I don't know, we don't have any better solution than this for a society at the moment, but I'm certainly positive that this is not, this is something which will lead us to, I mean, if you look at the whole, all democracies of the world, you will see the percentage of faith in these societies are much, much lower than percentage of faith in those dictatorial societies. Not that dictatorship is good, it's very bad, it's why, it's from Shaitan. But this society, this type of value has not produced something which is more toward Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is more away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What would be the better solution? We haven't worked on this. And there are lots of work that we have to do as Muslim intellectuals to find out what is really the opinion that we have to advocate, the opinion that we have to expose. And sometimes we expose opinions that is only from Shaitan and we don't know ourselves. So it is something really, really, really scary.
Should help it keep in times multiply and do they have a lifestyle like they die?
Yet of course they die, and they have my lifespan because they are jinn. Whatever we say about jinn, we have said about shayateen. And the jinn, as we mentioned last time, there are very good people among them, but very good jinns, of course, we cannot call the people. Very good jinns among them, there are very bad jinns among them. They fight against each other among themselves, and they kill each other sometimes. So the shayateen have a lifespan, and probably, I'm not sure, but probably a shaitan which is appointed to a person would die with that person, because they are so close and interlinked to each other that shaitan has become part and parcel of the soul of a person. And when that person died, the shaitan would die with him as well. That is probable, I don't know. So sometimes the lifespan of a jinn would be the lifespan of a human being. And sometimes it could be much, much longer. We don't know. And how do one do that? Well, they marry. How they marry, we don't know. And they have reproduction. How they do it, we don't know. Well, if you believe in the Lord of the Rings, you can say that a jinn can, an elf can marry a human being, and sometimes they can reproduce among themselves. What are you?
I'd like to ask you just on a practical point about admonishing. Because from your talk it seems that someone that admonishes and advises properly is one that admonishes and advises with a focus on the hereafter and on death, basically. And if this what is meant in the Quran, it says, وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ. Because in the Quran, I think in the Quran it says that this world is batil. Huh? So is that what it means?
Well, certainly any advice which doesn't have that factor in mind is around advice. But advising always for the hereafter is not, of course, a good advice. If you look into the advice of Amirul Mu'minin Nahjul Balagha to different people, you would see he always had that akhirah in mind. But he advises people for the dunya at work. For example, he advises Malik Ashtar how he had to run his army, how he had to run his country, how he had to run his economy and other things, how he had to deal with different people. But all the time, whatever he said, he's somehow shadowed by the thought of the hereafter. You are going to die, so be careful, make the right decisions and all these things. Certainly, I mean, you can say that if someone, for example, advised me that since you are going to die, so you better go and become a monk and have your attention all the time to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and do not do anything for this world. This was very nice in the past for even some companions of the Prophet, which Prophet certainly prevented them from doing. No, you are a social being, you have to live in society, you have to encounter all these difficulties that other people encounter, and at the same time you have to be a pious person. I don't think a person who goes to a cave or who goes to his own solitude to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever level they reach, I don't think they can reach the level of a person who had the same attention to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they live in society and they encounter all those hacks and difficulties that other people encounter. I mean, you can say to a monk that you are not looking for any children, you are not looking for you are not caring for your family, you have no work, you have no business, you have nothing to do, you can praise, worship Allah from the morning to the evening, you can sleep very early, wake up very early in the morning, everything is in order for you. And why shouldn't you worship your Lord? Why shouldn't you come to those positions? Now, come to the society, look after the family, look after your own self, encounter other things, and then be the same as you are in that monastery of yours to see whether you could or not. Of course, if a person could do that in a society, he is successful. There's a in Nahjul Balagha by Amirul Mu'minin. Amirul Mu'minin said Isa alayhi salam was very lucky because he didn't have to look after any family. He didn't have someone to look after. And he could just completely put his attention to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But why didn't Amirul Mu'minin do the same thing? Couldn't he do that? Certainly he could do it, but that was not the thing which, of course, Isa alayhi salam did it for a purpose. That was not something that awliya Allah were ordered to do. They are ordered to live ordinarily as other people live, have the same difficulties that other people have, and then have their attention completely to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Thank you. Can you share that with okay. And how do I